Before Sylvester Croom made history on the sidelines, he earned respect in the trenches, blocking for legends, leading with quiet strength, and helping to integrate the Alabama Crimson Tide. This is the story of Sylvester Croom from his own mouth today on the Crimson Chronicles podcast. In today's conversation, we want to give a quick shout out to our friends at Yay Alabama, the official NIL collective of the Crimson Tide. They're doing incredible work supporting Alabama student athletes on and off the field. To learn more and to get involved, visit yay-alabama.com.
Thank you, Rick. It's great to have Sylvester Croom on our Crimson Chronicles podcast. Sylvester is very well known to our Alabama family, grew up in Tuscaloosa, the son of Reverend Sylvester Croom, who was actually the team chaplain when I was the ticket manager in the late 80s. So I got to be around Reverend Croom a little bit. And at the age of 16, he reported as according to the media guide, a 6 foot, 200-pound tight end / linebacker. He was switched to tackle in 72, then center in 73 and 74. And I'm going to ask him a little bit more about that in a minute. Sylvester had an exemplary career at Alabama, 32-4 overall record, 3 SEC championships, 3 top 10 finishes, 1 national championship in 1973, All-American and All-SEC in 74, Senior Bowl participant, selected a team captain in 74 along with his great friend Ricky Davis. He played 1 year in the NFL with the Saints, then came back to Tuscaloosa to join the coaching staff, first as a GA, then as a full-time coach. And in total, he had 11 seasons here at the university, 7 with Coach Bryant and 4 with Coach Ray Perkins. Then he went with Coach Perkins to Tampa in the early 1987 and spent the next 17 seasons in the NFL with several teams, mostly as coaching the running backs. He was with Tampa Bay, Indianapolis, San Diego, Detroit, where he was offensive coordinator for 4 seasons, and the Packers. And then in a groundbreaking hire in 2003, Sylvester became the head coach for the Mississippi State Bulldogs. He was SEC Coach of the Year in 2007, which included a 17-12 victory over Alabama and Coach Nick Saban. Then after 4 years at Mississippi State, it was back to the NFL where he was the running backs coach for 9 more years, spending time with the Rams, the Jaguars, and the Titans. And to put a bow on his storied coaching career, Sylvester was selected into the College Football Hall of Fame in 2022. And finally, after more than 40 years as a player and a coach, he is enjoying a well-earned retirement. It's great to have you.
Good seeing you, Doc. And I'm glad to be.
You know, Coach, I'm just tired listening to all those accolades. I have to be honest. What a career and what an auspicious beginning. Tommy talked about as a 16-year-old. You walked into that locker room in 1971. What was that like as a 16-year-old young man to walk into that team in 1971?
Well, it was a unique experience. First of all, I guess I was 16 years old and just graduated from Tuscaloosa High School and was very young. You know, you're walking in there and you see guys like John Hanna and Musso around there, and you're in a different world. And I had come to high school almost right across the street from practice over there at Tuscaloosa High, and hadn't won in Alabama. I just wanted to be on a winning team. I never, to be honest with you, I didn't know if I was good enough, to be honest with you, because to play for, more than anything else, to play for Coach Bryant. And then when you get out there and you see guys like Musso and Hanna, you think, okay, I'm not sure if I can be like these guys, but I'm going to give it everything I got.
Well, Sly, you were there in 1971. How involved were you personally and also the freshmen in general in the switch to the wishbone? Because you were pretty much going to be an offensive lineman the rest of your career. Tell us about that transition. I know we've heard all the stories about the wishbone, and I know the Southern Cal game in '71, but just tell us about how all that transpired.
Well, I came over in, like I say, Coach Donahue invited me over to work out in the summer of '71. I think it was around June, and of course, they gave me a locker in there because I was living in Tuscaloosa. I don't think any other freshmen were even there at that time. And just sort of sit in the back of the locker room, went in the weight room, and those kind of things, and just learning the guy. One day I was in there, and the quarterbacks came in. I think it was Benny Ripito and Terry Davis. And I was sitting down in the corner, to be honest with you, waiting to get in the shower. And guys talking. I never get. I think it was Ripito that said something to him. He said they were over there whispering. They said, "You heard we going to the wishbone." So me, I thought no big deal to me. And the first time I heard anything about it, and that the quarterbacks had just gotten the word that the rumors had started spreading that it was going to happen. And so, it wasn't a big deal to me. I'm just glad to be there. And so when we started practicing, we were in the wishbone, and as far as the rest of the players, I don't know if they told the veteran players anything. Nobody ever told us anything about keeping it secret or anything. We just went about our normal business, and my biggest role was I was always on the scout team. I know a couple of Rick Davis, Mike Washington, myself. But I know with three of the freshmen that were pretty much on scout team over there all year, and it was not a lot of fun. I mean, scout team over there, and right up in front of John Hanna. I mean, it was unbelievable. One time, John hit me and literally picked me up off the ground and just ran with me, and I'm sitting there thinking, this is not going to end well. And he really could have hurt me. Sort of put me down. I mean, literally picked me up and took me about 10 yards downfield. Never anything like it before, and probably since.
Wow. Well, Coach, it's well documented, being one of the first African American players at the university. And how did you and the other pioneers during that time handle the pressure of breaking down the barriers that you were a part of during your
Well,
time at the university?
it was different because you got all the normal pressures of just being a freshman in Alabama. Um, just getting acclimated to going to class, to being in college, being away from home. At least I was still in Tuscaloosa, but it seemed like a million miles away. Being out there on campus and practicing football, and then just playing for Coach Bryant. And even though we didn't have direct contact with the varsity coaches and with Coach Bryant, we're on the scout team had to work. I mean, the freshmen at that time, we pretty much ran the scout team, and the ones that weren't on the scout team, they just over there practicing against each other. Some days there wouldn't be enough of us over there to actually practice, so you do drills all day. And a guy named Danny Ford was the guy for the freshmen. And when he didn't have another 11, he might have 8 or 9 guys left over there on offense. Drive the sled. I can remember one day I was so glad just to get on the scout team. Uh, I meant, it was tough going against Hannah and those offensive, but it was better to go against them in a team situation. Stay over there with Danny Ford and do drills all day. Hit the sled and literally drive the sled from one zone of the field to the other end zone of the field. Get a little water break, turn around, and drive it all the way back down the other end, and do it in 5 to 10 yard bursts, and just as hard as you could go. And that was pretty much some days. I remember a couple of we pretty much did that the whole practice.
Mm.
So I was as a freshman, I was glad when I was tabbed to be on the.
That's amazing. That
Yeah.
Coach, that sounds about as miserable as anything I could imagine. I got to be honest.
It is it was hard. I mean, practicing football and being on the team, and I won't lie, I don't think any player who ever played for Coach Bryant would not say that at some time he thought about, am I sure I want to do this? And a lot of discussions about it every night. Some we would our freshman group would really bond it, and I think I think that's what really brought us together because it was the camaraderie, the friendship, and the concern for each other is probably what kept most of us there. But I shouldn't say most of us because I think we had 35 freshmen in our class, and I think it was only somewhere between 15 and 20 of us that actually graduated.
Slop, this reminds me of a story Mal Moore told. I was overall a lot of the reunions for when I did the A Club for many years, and we had the 61 reunion, their 50-year reunion of the 61 team back in 2011, and he wanted to involve all the players who may have started with them in 58 but didn't finish with them in 61, 62 in that reunion. He said, a lot of them quit, but he said we all wanted to quit. And I'm sure that was the same with y'all because this was only 10 years later. Coach Bryant was still at the prime of his career. And I know it had to have been tough. And then the additional responsibility, pressures that you had, that you and Ralph Stokes and Mike Washington had as the three African American signees in that class, had to wait on your mind quite a bit during that time.
Well, it did, Tommy, because the reason we went to Alabama, for first of all, I know, and let me go back a little bit, because of Wendell Hudson and men in basketball, and even though we were football players, Wendell had a lot to do with us making it.
Uh,
He was already there. He was the first guy. And you have to understand this is that we were we were very young probably at the height of the civil rights movement. I know I was still in elementary school, so it was during the time when schools were desegregated in Alabama, and particularly for me, growing up right there in Tuscaloosa and remembering, and just as I can remember it as clear as yesterday uh, when Governor Wallace stood in the door over at Foster Auditorium in an effort to block Vivian Malone and James Hood from entering the university. So now, hey, those two pioneers have opened the doorway for us to be out here on these practice fields. So basically, you have a philosophy. We didn't plan to go to the University of Alabama. I think most of us, particularly guys from Alabama, I know I was going to A&M. Wendell Hudson said he was going to and intended to go to Alabama A&M. My father graduated from there. John Stallworth, one of my best friends at that time, from Tuscaloosa, was playing wide receiver, and he ended up being a Hall of Fame player for the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's where I was going to go to school. But when the opportunity presented itself to go to the University of Alabama and play for Coach Bryant, it also presented another opportunity. It presented the opportunity to participate and contribute to the civil rights movement. You have to understand, for those of us in the Black community, there was this idea of, hey, we've been raised over the years that when the opportunity, when the integration came, to prepare ourselves to show that we were worthy of the opportunity and that we were just as good as anybody else in this country. So that's where the pressure came from, is that now we had to step up to the plate because of all that our parents, the sacrifices that they had made, the struggles they had gone through. People had literally died in order for us to be on those practice fields, for us to be in those classrooms. Uh, the, uh, those three little girls at the 16th Street Baptist Church were a huge motivation for me, not only then, but throughout the course of my life. I always thought they gave their lives that I could wear that. They gave their lives for me to be here. So I got to make it. I can't quit. Every time I thought about quitting, I would think about them. I would think about James Meredith, Megha Ebbett, Vivian Malone, the sacrifices she made. I cannot imagine uh, what she, being the only Black student on the campus, having to have guards with her to go to class. And there was nothing normal about what she did. So you got other people who have made a whole lot more sacrifices than I ever could, because their sacrifices was a bluff. And so my job is to make this football team and
Good for
play
you.
Bryant, because if you can play for Coach Bryant, you can play for anybody.
Sure. Yeah.
And it was the if you can make it with him, that you're well. So there was this idea among all of us, Wendell Hudson, and all the basketball players, track players, Mike Washington folks, Wilbur Jackson, that don't ever forget this guy.
Yeah.
Wilbur set the pace for all of us. He and Wendell, not only just athletically, but in the way they handle things. Whenever they faced adversity, whenever they faced some kind of difficulty, whether any kind of injustice was done to them, they handled it with class and determination. Always with the idea of, I'm not responsible for how people treat me. I am responsible for how I treat them. And every day in those, a lot of times we would eat together in the cafeteria. It was with the black players. It was, we didn't see each other a lot during the daytime, particularly with the basketball players, but we'd eat dinner together. And Ray Odom's them were those guys were, during football season, they were having a good time, and they would come out to practice. And if you hadn't done well when you walked in that cafeteria, somebody was going to bring it up at the table. Times when I first got there, wait till they leave. I would go in there. If I had I'll wait to snack tonight. I can't take this today. But and the ring leader, he just sort of sit there and watch over everything since he had seniority over it. But there was a great camaraderie, and there was always, no matter how tough it got, if anybody thought about quit, no man, you can't go on. I mean, they sit there and can't quit. Just just get up tomorrow and keep coming back one day at a time. And that's the way we approached it, one day at a time. And we approached it together.
Good for you.
Wow.
Obviously, we talked about your great career you had and all your accolades, but tell us about that 73 season. Coach Bryant let the wishbone sprout wings that year. Gary Rutledge and Richard Todd and Wayne Wheeler. Then you had those great backs with Billingsley and LeBou and I mean, it was and Ralph and Wilbur, and gosh, it was an unbelievable offense. Tell us about that 73 national championship season and what your role. I assume you were the starting center that year, right?
Yes, I had after the 72 season. First of all, let me go back. They had mentioned in 71, Jack Rutledge took myself, Mike Dubose, Ronnie Joe Barnes, and I think it's Mike Brophy passed away right after we left, I think. But anyway, they started us every day after practice on 10-yard sprints, but nobody ever told us why. This is 71 now. It also shows you about Coach Brown. This is in 1971, and Jim Croft was playing center. So we do this for about a week, and somehow I don't remember how, but I overheard a conversation that those sprints they were trying to find somebody who had the ability to play center to replace Croft after he's graduated. That shows you how Coach Bryant was always thinking ahead.
Yeah.
So as soon as I found that out, I'm not winning in those 10-yard sprints anymore. I'm not even trying to end up being the best one in the bunch. And they moved him to center. And I'm sure people don't. You need to go back and look at pictures of Dubose when he was a freshman. I mean, he was a big guy now and a great linebacker. Well, he plays center all our freshman year on the freshman team. I play linebacker. Ended up playing linebacker instead of tight end. Just wasn't fast enough, to be honest with you. But anyway, after Christmas, we go home for Christmas vacation and come back. Mike Dubose has lost at least 20 pounds. And with the idea that he's not playing center, he's going back. So now they got to look for another guy in the spring. So they fast forward to the fall, and I'm playing tight end all that spring, going into our sophomore season. We get into August practice. I think I got a chance to be the starting tight end. Well, I walk in the locker room one day, and I go to get my equipment in the basket. At that time they had different colors on the first team, green jersey, second. So I don't have a red jersey, which was supposed to be tight end. And I look on the depth chart to see, I've been demoted at tight end. I got a great jersey. So I know I'm on the second string. And I look at the tight end position and my name's not there either. I'm on, but my name ain't on the depth chart. But the Meadows, who was the guy, he said, you need to look at that again. I have gone from being the starting tight end for the red jersey to being the backup left tackle with a green jersey. Not only
Wow.
the starting left tackle, I'm the backup left tackle.
Wow.
And the thing that really bothered me, I'm sitting there thinking, and nobody come to ask me what I think about this. They back in those days, when Coach wanted to do something, he called me and get your thoughts on it. So again, make a long story short, of course, it's not what I want to do. I wanted to be fighting for linebacker. And I was a big fan of Jeff Rousey, who had been, I think, the previous, a couple of years. I could always remember seeing Rousey win the MVP in the Blue Bonnet Bowl. And so, hey, I admire Jeff Rousey. I admire him as a player and a man. And he had an unfortunate accident that ended what was going to be a great career.
Right.
But I go out to practice. I got a bad attitude. I get hurt. So now I'm out of practice for I think I missed practice. And this is in August I don't think we got but 3 weeks before the opening game.
Mm.
So I'm out. So I'm not going to play. No chance. I hurt my hamstring. Pulled it bad. I couldn't practice. And so I thought that injury was really going to hurt the team. I said, hey, y'all get what you deserve. You just lost your start tight end. And the next week, one of the tight ends got hurt. The week just before, I think it was Saturday before the first game, another tight end hurt. Okay. So if I'm well, I may not be the starting tight end. I might at least gonna be the backup. And I learned a valuable lesson there. You don't ever know when your opportunity is gonna come.
Yeah.
And the saying started in my head. I heard people say this. I pass it on to young people. You have to stay ready so you don't have to get ready. Because
Right.
you better be ready. And I learned that through that series of activity. Because I had a bad attitude and got my hamstring hurt, I missed a great opportunity. So I learned from that, and it ended up I got well. I played as a backup tackle and went through the year after the with I was the backup tackle, but I should have said I was the backup tackle, but I didn't play very much. Played just enough to let her. After the season was over with, I knew I wasn't going to play tight end again because we had a guy named George. I knew I wasn't ever going to play linebacker again. Low was unbelievable. And I knew I wasn't going to be that fast enough. So it was sort of one of those deals where I went into Coach Bryant and basically said, Coach, is that center position still open? The one thing I really that opportunity. And I said, Coach, I said, do you think I could be good at this? That was the question I said, and he said, if you work at it, I think you can be really good at it. I said, okay, I want to do it. And the thing that I've always appreciated Coach Friday is he never forced me to make that move. He always knew his players. There were times he would, he would call guys in. Even I can remember when I was coach, and he'd tell them, hey, you need to go ahead and move. Never said that to me. And even when I asked him about it, it was almost, he made me feel like it was my decision. Because I think if he had forced it on me, I don't think I ever would have responded right. And just knowing my temperament. But an opportunity for me to play. And by this time, after sitting on that bench, being a backup all year and watching Woodrow play and watching Mike play and the guys play, that was going to be no more of that for me. I was going to find a way to get on the field some kind of way. History.
So the 73 season, a national championship, you were the starting center
Yes.
by then, 73 and 74.
Yes.
What are your memories from that 73 national championship year?
It was the most fun I think I've ever had in football. As a player, and we won a lot of games, and we really beat people. Not too long ago, had we not lost the Notre Dame game, Coach Bryant had made the statement that he was going to say that was the greatest offense that he'd ever had. We were putting up points. Everybody played. Literally everybody played. We were so good at that time that you had to, if when you went on the field, you better play well or somebody had to die. But the thing that was special about the team, how we bonded. You go back and you ask the question about being black on the. Well, the first year, that was uh, I wouldn't say major problem, but there was some tension. Different guys had different, ran into, you know, some hints of guys, just getting familiar with each other. Very few of us, very few of the black players had played with white players before, and there were a lot of the juniors. I get my the '73. Of course, we got all the frat houses around. The players would do, even though they weren't a member of the fraternity, they could walk in pretty much any frat party and be welcomed, particularly that year to win it. So a group of the guys were going over one night. We were sitting around just talking, just hanging out, black players and white players, and they said, "Well, let's go to the frat party." We all go, and we go start into frat parties, and you can see some of the frat boys sort of looking about whether they want to let us in. There was some hesitation about it. Some of the older guys look, "Hey, we're all coming in." That was the kind of bond that we had. By some of the tension of the first 2 years that I was there was gone. And this football team, that '73 team, was probably as close as any team I have ever been on, player or coach, in the locker room. And that's what made it so much fun. I mean, we knew we were going to win when we went on the field, and we had a great time off the field. I mean,
Yeah.
out together, out in each other's room. We played together, we did everything together, and that was the beauty of it. Things had really started to change. We truly were a team at that time, that year '73, and it showed on the field.
Coach, I want to go back for just a second and ask you something. We've had over the course of the last couple of seasons, we've had some great interviews, and I think back to talking to Paul Caruth and Randy Edwards together, and them talking about Coach Bryant and just the emotion that really kind of came out in them because of how special Coach Bryant was and how special he was to them and the impact that he made on their lives. What did it mean to you for him to say to you that he believed in you and he believed you could be good in making that transition to center? What did that do to you as a young man?
We knew that Coach Bryant cared about us more than just about winning games. He always emphasized to us that the lessons that we were going to learn on the field was going to carry over in our lives. He wanted us win games, and he wanted us to learn how to win in life. And that was the thing that really, we talk about my transition from tight end to linebacker, offensive tackle to center. And even I'll go back to '72. What made me decide to make that switch, I decided to make that switch after the Tennessee game in '72. And I remember when we came from behind up there in the last 2 minutes and win the game. It's one of those deals where, after the game, that was the first time that I'd ever been in a football game late in the fourth quarter and won the game. That was the first time I'd ever experienced that. So after I get back to the game, I said, well, rationally, I came to Alabama to learn how to win from a guy who knows how to win. And Coach Bryant. Well, if he thinks you can play center and he knows how to win, why don't you just buy into this thing and do what he asks you to do?
Yeah.
That game and us coming from behind, that is when I made the decision that day, and the way in the locker room that we felt after we beat Tennessee. I said, I want to feel this every week. And they're a great player, and I'm going to buy in and do what Coach Bryant asked me to do. And so I didn't say anything to him then. I went to him after the season was over with. As soon as the season was over, we talked about it. But that's the day I made my decision, was after the Tennessee game. That's the first time I ever smoked those cigars, and I didn't know anything about that. But that game changed my whole attitude about Alabama. And I knew I was wrong at the time, too. And only got 2 years left. And hey, I wanted to play. And but that was the effect Coach Bryant had. He knew how to win. And let me say this. Excuse me, guys, but a lot of places I still think about I had a chance to my career. Meet a lot of great players, a lot of great people. I had a chance to go to the White House. President Bush and I stand in a room by ourselves, and I'm scared to death because I know the Secret Service were watching me, and I said, "Hey, don't make me turn something because you'll be a dead man." But with all the people I've met in my life, my daddy and Coach Bryant, greatest two men I've met in my life.
Wow.
There ain't a day I don't think about either one of them because they were a lot alike. And I'll never forget when one time I went in to talk to Coach Bryant, and he told me when I was walking out, we talked about some personal things, and he said to me, he said, "Well, if you get to be the half the man that your daddy is, you'll be all right." And that's about the only time I thought 50% was good enough, but I miss both of them.
That was Coach Sylvester Croom, a national champion, a coach, a leader, and a man whose legacy runs deep in the fabric of Alabama football. We hope this story challenged and inspired you the way it did us. We'd like to ask you to be sure to subscribe to the Crimson Chronicles podcast and share this episode with Bama fans in your life. New episodes drop every Tuesday, and we're just getting started. And so I'm Rick Morton for my co-host, Tommy Ford. Until the next time, Roll Tide!